So join me in a guided meditation. It's called the river. Find yourself a comfortable place to sit. Enjoy yourself while you're just relaxing, sitting on a meditation cushion or laying on the floor. And close your eyes or soften your gaze. And take a couple deep breaths with me, just to let go of the day. And bring yourself back home to yourself in this moment of here and now. Imagine yourself at the edge of a forest. It's an ancient forest. It's been there for thousands of years. It's one that has been known by many, many generations of people. There have been animals and times that have gone by, and this forest has stood there the entire time. The stories of the trees are ancient and wondrous. And so as you find this pathway to walk along, you notice the loam beneath your feet. And it's a soft cushion to every step that you take. And as you step into the forest, you feel like you're part of the forest. And the trees are welcoming you. These ancient trees with thick bark that are so big you can't even put your arms around them. And they are so ancient and glorious and magnificent. And there's greenery all along the floor of the forest, and ferns and plant life and vines. And as you're there, you notice that different birds that are hopping along the branches and on the forest floor, finding something to eat, and squirrels climbing up the trees, and foxes stealing away and hiding here and there. And there might be all kinds of wildlife there, just taking a peek at you and wondering who you are. But they welcome you. And you keep walking along, and as you look straight up, you see the trees that just stretch clear into the sky as far as they can possibly go. And barely can you see the blue skies overhead. But as you take this winding path through the forest, you notice there's a clearing towards the edge, and the pathway is leading right there towards the edge of that clearing. And you go down into this beautiful valley at the edge of the forest. And it's lovely, it's peaceful. And all around the valley are these enormous, magnificent peaks that stretch thousands and thousands of feet high into the air, and they're all covered with snow at the very tips of the mountains. And you can hear waterfalls along the edge as it's coming down into the river below, which you're headed towards. You can hear the water and feel the magnificence of the trees and of the mountains and of the clouds overhead that are backlit by the sun to their brightest white. And you come down into this valley where there are grasses just swaying in the wind and brushing up against each other. And it's about thigh high. All of these grasses are so beautiful. And they go on and on and on. And you keep walking through this pathway till you come to the most beautiful wild alpine flowers. Every color you can imagine. It's that time of year when they are at their peak and they're so beautiful. They're celebrating life, and you are there to be a part of it. You keep walking along through the meadow of the grasses and the flowers with the mountains overhead and the blue skies above you and the clouds gently flowing past. And you come to a grove of aspen trees. And those vertical sentinels of trees just in their speckled bark, those white trees with the speckled bark of black. And the leaves aren't yet golden yet, it's still green. It's late summer and it's warm. And the breeze is gently blowing all of those leaves and they're clapping together, and with the sun shining on them, they look like silver dollars just quaking in the sunlit breeze, and it's beautiful. And it's just that they're welcoming you, clapping and applauding. There's a huge applause as you're coming through the forest there, and this new forest of aspens. And you're walking along this pathway that leads you down into the edge of a riverbank. And there you see the mossy edge, and it's welcoming you to take off your shoes. And whatever's on your feet, just take that off and feel that texture of the moss beneath your feet. It's a thick moss, a thick cushion of moss. And you become, it also looks like you become a part of it. But you notice the river, and it's flowing gently past. It's not a great big river. It's kind of a medium stream, if you will. And it's just gently flowing down the stream, and yet it's thick enough, it's deep enough. And it's welcoming you to come into the river. But you can't do that just yet. Because as you step down into the sandy soil there on the edge of the river, it's like a little cove, and water's kind of lapping up against your ankles, and you look down and you notice, for the first time, you notice that you have on a suit of armor. And this suit of armor represents every care, every concern that you've ever had. But the water is beckoning you in. But if you don't take off your suit of armor, you can't go into the water because you would sink. Because you would be too heavy, and you would sink into the water. And so the only thing to do is to take off all these pieces of armor. And the wondrous thing you can do is you can attach something to each piece of armor and let it float down the river until it floats beyond the horizon line and it disappears. So as you're standing there in this kind of sandy cove and the water's lapping up around your ankles, take off each legging one by one and attach something, like a concern for a loved one, or maybe it's a regret, or something that you wished you had done, or maybe it's something you need to forgive, or someone you need to forgive. Maybe it's something you need to forgive in yourself. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's a wish that you never quite accomplished. Whatever it is, the things that hold you down, the things that keep you from moving forward, that keep you floating and being in that flow of life, put it on these pieces of armor. And as you let those leggings flow down the river, you see them kind of float and catching the glint of the sunlight, and they gently flow down the river and they disappear. That part of that worry, that concern, that something that was bothering you is now gone. How does that feel? Now take off what's around your arms. You have pieces that probably cover your hands and people that cover your forearms, and take off those pieces of armor and do the same thing. Attach something of a concern, something that's holding you back, something that's been there for a long time, ancient concerns. Attach those and let them float down river. Take up the pieces around your shoulder. They'll be right around these round pieces around on your shoulder, and they just take that off of your shoulders and attach something to those pieces. Unforgivenesses, jealousy, anger, pieces you hold on to that keep you from loving yourself and loving others completely. And the very last piece you need to take off is your breastplate. It covers your heart. And as you take that off, take every worry and concern that's left behind, that you've held, that has protected your heart or felt like you protected your heart, and put it on that breastplate. You can have many items that you put on that breastplate and lay it gently into the water and allow it to flow down the river. Watch it disappear. And now you're free and clear of all encumbrances. And if you want, you can take off the rest of your clothing that's underneath and leave yourself so you lay bare in the water and walk down and allow the water to flow up to your knees and up to your thighs, and lay back in the water and just float. Feel the freedom and the liberation, letting go of all the concerns that you've ever held on to. And feel yourself just flow with the river as you go on down the river. And you see the trees go by, great big, tall blue spruce trees and aspen trees and all kinds of life just moving on by as you float along the river, which takes you gently around rocks and around the bends, and you eventually end up in a large lake. And there you are at the lake, and you notice the trees above you all around and the mountains all around you, and how beautiful it is. And it's just pure grace and pure elegance and magnificence. And you are that as well. And know that you can come here anytime. You can be in this place and allow yourself to be in this place of grace, this place of remembrance, this place of who you have always been and who you shall always be. It's an elegant place, a place of glory. And float there for as long as you want as the sun shines down upon you. And you see the clouds flow overhead and the blue skies above that extend into infinity. And when you're ready, you can step away to the water's edge. You step out, and there's a pathway that will lead you back to where your clothes are, or where your shoes are laying there on the mossy edge of the riverbank. You put your clothes back on, and as you walk back, taking that pathway that brought you there, you back through the forest of the aspen trees, and you walk on back into the valley there with all of the flowers and all their beautiful colors, and the grasses swaying in the breeze, and the mountains smiling down upon you. The sun shines upon you and dries you and warms you. And you keep walking gently up the pathway back into the forest. And you walk again among these massive trees that have been there in their ancient forest that welcome you, and they keep telling you, and all of this is telling you, come back anytime you want, for you are always welcome. And in that, you know that just the remembrance of being in the forest and being there in the valley among the grasses and the trees and the aspen trees and the mossy riverbank, and laying everything aside that has ever been on your heart, it's always a place of where you can do the same and float among the river, float downstream, where you easily flow past anything that ever was an obstacle, and you come back into the elegance of the river that becomes the lake, becomes the water, which is the greatest form of life here on earth, the greatest life force on earth. And it is you, and you are it. You are always welcome. And as you step outside the forest, you go walk back into your life again, but you are changed, you are renewed. You have come into your own personal sovereignty, and how magnificent you are. For you are as the forest, as the trees, as all nature around you. And you are blessed. So thank you for joining me today, and know that you can return to this meditation anytime. You are always welcome. Blessings.